What's going on, guys? Let's talk about remote training. As the digital age progresses, one of the things that we are seeing a lot more of is video and book courses for the martial arts and for other various forms of athlete training. Now, on the plus side, and I'm going to tell you, I'm a big fan of remote learning. One of the big things about this is that wherever you live, the chance that you actually live near one of the best coaches or even a top level coach is actually pretty low. So knowing that good coaches are actually a very finite commodity, then you have to be able to kind of move outside of that system. Now that doesn't mean don't train with what's available, right? Because training with what's available is still going to get you somewhere as long as the person is reputable, as long as they're good, right? Good coaches are a dime a dozen. Bad coaches are a dime a dozen. Great coaches are rare, okay? And so being able to study outside of class can be an extremely valuable tool. But in order to do that effectively, you have to do things a kind of a certain way. So the number one thing, if you are a remote student, you have to be honest and open that you are a remote student. You have to be honest with people, and you have to be honest with yourself. And the reason for this is that you could be an absolutely fantastic whatever skill set, but as soon as you're dishonest about something, you have just shattered your credibility amongst most of the people, and it can absolutely ruin your ability to work within that sphere. When you decide to engage in remote learning, one of the major things that you need, and this is very specific to martial arts, it doesn't hurt with other athletic training, but is very specific to martial arts, you absolutely need at least one training partner. Now, in my book, you actually need two, because any given drill, you want a set of eyes outside of the two people working so that the third person can compare what you're doing to whatever the source material is and give some insights or whatnot. Now you can still make this work with just one training partner, with the caveat of you should probably be recording these sessions. Now, most people these days have a camera on their phone, and in addition to that, a lot of people just have cameras anyway. We live in a kind of a world that just gets recorded all the time. So you probably have access to even some low-grade recording equipment. This doesn't have to be professional grade stuff, but you should be able to record what you're doing so you can look back on it and see, because you can't always feel things when you don't even know what you're doing, okay? So that's kind of step one, is finding the right finding the right material, finding a good good reputable source material, and then finding a good training partner or two or more, right? You could actually create a small study group. And in fact, I think doing study group sessions is a very valuable way of doing things. And over time, you're going to want more people anyway, because when it comes to fighting, no two people move the same. No two people strategize and problem solve the same. So the more hands you touch, the bigger your algorithm will be, the more capable it will be of adapting to changes. The next side of it that we need to be looking at is you need to come up with a regular practice schedule. You can't just watch or read. You have to actually physically practice this stuff. And now, you know, in the weightlifting world, we generally see that kind of the rock bottom idea for people is train 2 days a week. You know, can you get away with less? Yeah, maybe. You know, Eric Helms put out a video recently where he said a soccer team, I think, was doing like strength and conditioning training once every other week, and that was not enough to maintain. But then I want to say like the next study that he cited basically said 2 days a week you could actually make progress on. And now as far as what's in between there, I don't know, but I will tell you from personal experience watching students come in once every other week, they don't make much ground. And even once a week can be difficult. So bare minimum, you should be training 2 days a week, and each of those training sessions should be, you know, between an hour up to a couple of hours, right? You don't want to go into the point where you're starting to get brain fog. And I've certainly had like, you know, marathon 5-hour, 6-hour sessions before. But the fact is the brain fog sets in as fatigue sets in. So unless you're taking a lot of breaks and doing a lot of like just socializing in between, there is no reason to be spending, you know, 3, 4, 5 hours doing this stuff, because your nervous system is just going to be degraded beyond that. So you definitely minimum 2 days a week. I would recommend 3 to 4 days a week. If you want to space it out, I mean, you could do a little bit every day. That can kind of work. But again, it's good to have some downtime as well. So I think 3 to 4 days, just kind of like you would do a weightlifting split for skill learning, is not a bad idea. 6 days is fine if you have the recovery capacity, but again, for a lot of people, that's too much. You know, so now we have right material, training partners, camera, and training schedule where you actually physically practice. Now, the last thing that I'm going to say, training remotely, is that you should be, and I'm very serious about this, you should be attending every single seminar and open mat, whatever that you can find in your area if you don't have like a home school to be going to, right? Or let's say you're a karate guy and you're trying to learn grappling, and there's not a good grappling school around you, so you're doing grappling remotely and you've got 2 or 3 good friends. Well, you should be going to every single open mat that you can justify, that you can afford to get to, so that you can get some extra experience with people who do this all the time. And we have great example of Evan Tanner, who is unfortunately deceased now, but he was, you know, former UFC champion, and while he did grow up wrestling, he didn't do remote learning from ground zero. He did it from a base, but he wanted to learn, you know, submissions and stuff, and he bought the Gracie home tapes, and he and a friend or two actually learned how to, you know, actually do submission grappling in their garage on their own. And that was enough to get him through, you know, several levels of competition, you know, before he actually started getting actual professional coaching and whatnot. So, you know, is remote learning going to get you to the highest level? Well, you know, no, probably not. But is it better than nothing? Yes. You know, just because you don't have the best guy around you doesn't mean that you can't train. You should absolutely be training. And I would like to say that, you know, sharing space with HEMA guys, the entire HEMA community is based on the idea of, hey, we're taking these manuscripts from dead guys with no living lineages, and we're going to just parse this out, and we're going to keep testing through sparring over and over and over again until we get something functional. And you know what? They're doing it. They're actually doing a really good job with it. You know, so clearly learning from book and video source material can be doable, but you need all these things that I mentioned, right? So hopefully that clears things up, right? And again, I can't stress this enough, always be honest about it, right? Never accept a rank on, you know, from a remote test. Testing needs to be done in person if there's any kind of ranking, because you want to know that the person actually looked at you and, you know, gave you the same treatment, and you really want to see how they treat their in-house students. You want to be able to go and see how that person trains with their students and how good their students are, and see how you measure up, right? There's going to be a lot of individual differences there, but you also need to know just how well you're doing, right? If you're really far off from their students, that means there's something wrong, right? And so these are things that you need to look out for. So is remote training a thing? Yes. Is remote training even valuable? Yes, absolutely it is, but you have to do it right. And I will say this, I mentioned it briefly, so I'm going to say it explicitly here, right? Remote training's probably not for somebody who's at ground zero, because you just don't know what you don't know. You probably need to be coming into it from some kind of basic understanding, whether you wrestled in school or, you know, took Taekwondo classes as a kid, or, you know, did some, you know, Golden Gloves boxing when you were a teenager or something like that. Those are all fine bases to have, and they can get you started down that path. But I definitely don't recommend this for ground zero people. Can it work? Yeah, if you're particularly clever, it can. But always assume you're worse than you look, that you're worse than you feel. Keep yourself hungry, right? It's not self-deprecation for the sake of self-deprecation. It is to keep you hungry and pushing for more. Never accept good enough is good enough, because if you don't have the watchful eyes of an experienced teacher or coach looking at you and doing those corrections for you, you have to do it for yourself, which means you absolutely have to put your ego aside and be the worst critic in the world of yourself, and just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And like I said, go to seminars, go to open mats, make these things work for you, because the only way you're going to make it work is through your own efforts. It's never the system, it's your training. So with that, I will talk to you guys later, and yeah, that's it. Good journey. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. In the links down below, you can find our social media, and I encourage you to follow us there. Take a look at our blog, where we have articles that go into depth that we just can't do in our video productions. And on top of that, go to our Amazon store, pick out a shirt that you like, and every little bit helps. If you're ever in the Phoenix area, look us up. Come in for a class, come in for open mat, whatever. Love to see you down here. You can find all our contact info on the website. Talk to you guys in the next one. Good journey.